Back to the deep dive, where we take source material and really give you the shortcut to being well informed. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into a really fascinating set of sources. They analyze one of the most successful, well, ministry and communication strategies in history, the work of the Apostle Paul. Our mission is to understand how the strategy was just so resilient, how it survived these huge physical and social barriers. And it all seems to revolve around a concept we found in the source material, unceasingly circulating agape love, which is drawn from the context of Paul's letter to the Colossians.
And what's so fascinating here is we're moving beyond, just simple theology. We're looking at organizational structure and logistics.
Right.
It's not just history. It's an analysis of how spiritual transformation creates real, actual change in the world, even when the key leader is, well, completely incapacitated.
So we're looking at Paul's strategic genius?
His genius, and how he unleashed this force of love that was just designed to be unbound by Roman chains, by borders, or even by something as rigid as slavery.
That's the real tension, isn't it? The messenger is bound, but the message is flowing faster than ever. Okay, let's unpack this. So where do we start? Paul's initial problem was scale, right?
Exactly. He couldn't physically visit every single church across Asia Minor. He had limited time, limited energy, and obviously limited resources.
So how did he solve that scalability crisis?
He solved it with a very deliberate model of decentralization. The sources are pretty clear that Paul realized trying to cover every city himself was a fatal flaw.
So his genius wasn't in the travel?
No, not in traveling constantly. It was in training profoundly.
Okay, so detail that for us. What was the actual mechanism he used?
It all centers on his 2-year residency in Ephesus, specifically at the School of Tyrannus.
And this wasn't just some casual lecture series?
Not at all. The sources suggest this was a rigorous, highly focused training incubator. Paul spent his time cultivating a dedicated small group of disciples. That was the hub.
So he was basically building a franchise model before the idea of franchising even existed. What were they learning that made them so effective?
They weren't just learning doctrine. I mean, that was part of it, of course. But they were learning communication strategy, organizational resilience. They became these reliable, trained conduits for the core message.
So he was teaching them how to teach.
Yeah, exactly. He was training the trainers. And that ensures the original content, his message, would be replicated accurately and, importantly, autonomously after he was gone. It protects against a single point of failure.
And we see the results of that almost immediately. I mean, the Colossian church itself is the perfect example. Paul never even went to Colossae.
Precisely. That entire church, a vibrant community, was founded and led by Epaphras,
who was a direct trainee from that school of Tyrannus.
Paul leveraged 2 years in one place to seed entire regions. It's an incredible strategy. So this is why the gospel just kept spreading unhindered, even when Paul was locked up in a Roman prison.
So it begs the question, what kind of infrastructure do you need, spiritual and physical, to make sure the message doesn't just survive the messenger's absence,
but actually accelerates when the messenger is silenced? That trained force, those disciples, they were the strategic solution.
And that foundation leads us right into the real drama of the story, Paul's imprisonment. He's physically stuck, but he sends out these two, socially explosive documents with a single courier.
Yeah, and this is where the strategy and the relational dynamics really collide. He entrusts these letters to Tychicus, his trusted representative.
And these weren't just, hope you're well letters. They were strategic deployments.
They were active agents of cultural change. Tychicus was carrying 2 vital pieces of communication. First, you have the official public letter for the whole church community.
That's the book of Colossians.
Yes, which deals with doctrine, unity, how to live the Christian life.
And then there's the second letter, the one where all the tension is.
The private one, the book of Philemon. It's incredibly short, very personal, and just utterly demanding. And it's addressed to the local church leader, Philemon.
And Tychicus wasn't traveling alone, which is another key detail.
No, he was not. He had a companion who was, as you put it before, basically a walking time bomb in Roman society.
Right.
He was accompanied by Onesimus. And you have to understand the social dynamic here. Onesimus was a runaway slave. He was legally the property of Philemon.
So he had escaped, somehow met Paul in Rome.
Met the imprisoned Paul, converted, was totally transformed, and now Paul is sending him back to his legal owner.
Wait, but isn't that incredibly risky? Sending a runaway slave back to his master, it sounds less like a strategy and more like, pure idealism.
It was both. But it was primarily a test of the message he'd been teaching. You mentioned risk, and we have to be clear about this. Under Roman law, the penalty for a runaway slave, a fugitivus, was
Mm.
what was often torture, public branding, or even crucifixion. The risk for Onesimus was absolute.
So Onesimus is willingly walking back into a situation that could mean his death. That puts a lot of weight on Paul's letter.
It does. But what's so fascinating is Paul's wording in the public letter in Colossians. He says Onesimus is returning not as a slave, but as a faithful and beloved brother.
So the letter filled with the theory of God's love and the living proof of it, Onesimus, are traveling together.
They are the message in circulation. It's brilliant. The demand Paul makes on Philemon to accept this man not just back, but as an equal brother, it just shatters the core of Roman social hierarchy.
It's revolutionary.
It's the ultimate test of Paul's whole strategy. He was forcing a confrontation between spiritual reality and brutal economic reality. He was telling Philemon to choose Christ's standard over Caesar's.
Which brings us right to that core concept you mentioned, unceasing circulation.
Yeah, okay.
How do the sources define this flow of agape love?
Well, agape here isn't just a feeling. You have to understand it as this unconditional, self-giving love that is inherently designed to demand action.
Yeah.
It's a force. And the circulation in this story happens in 3 really critical steps.
Walk us through those steps with Onesimus and Philemon.
Okay, so first, Paul receives this love from Jesus Christ.
Mhm.
Second, that love flows from Paul through his letters and his messenger, Tychicus, to Philemon.
And the third step is the proof, the action.
That's the completion of the circuit. That love, manifesting as God's power, enables Philemon to do what is humanly impossible, to forgive Onesimus, the runaway who cost him money and honor, and to accept him not as property, but as a genuine, fully equal brother.
It forces the social structure to completely give way to the spiritual reality.
Yes.
That's profound. It shows how people on opposite ends of the social spectrum, a master and a slave, are connected in this tight network of love. And it proves that the circulation doesn't stop, even when Paul is in prison.
In fact, his imprisonment intensifies it. And if you zoom out, this circulating agape is the engine. It's the mechanism that makes the whole mission work in the real world. It achieves unity where there were these impenetrable divides.
So the real lesson is resilience. The delivery method might change based on the circumstances, but the content, the love, has to keep flowing. Which is a perfect transition because our sources argue this exact model applies today in the age of digital content.
It really does.
In Paul's time, the tools were letters, seals, messengers like Tychicus. Those were the high-tech communication platforms of their day.
Absolutely. And today, the tools look different, but the challenge is the same. How do you transmit love and knowledge across borders, quickly and accurately? The source material argues pretty forcefully that the new medium for this transmission is the digital realm.
The internet, AI, global networks. It just changes the scope completely. You no longer need to spend 2 years at a school of Tyrannus to be trained before you can contribute.
Exactly. We've moved from a centralized training hub, sending physical letters, to a globally distributed network where really anyone can become a messenger. The mission is the same. Be a faithful carrier of this agape love, using the digital gifts we've been given to get the message to places we can't physically go.
Just like Paul relying on Epaphras when he was stuck in Rome.
Precisely.
And the sources use a really memorable analogy to describe the goal of this modern digital mission.
They do. It's a powerful image from the Old Testament. The mission is described as aiming to add a bucket of water to Ezekiel's temple river.
Okay, unpack that. Why that image? Why not start a new river?
Because it's about contribution, not control. The river of life in Ezekiel's vision was already huge and unstoppable. It flowed and deepened all by itself.
So the goal isn't to create the whole system.
No. The goal is just to contribute your bucket of water, of reliable, high-quality content into this massive existing flow. This digital content, whether it's videos or text or whatever else, is seen as the modern version of the power that was packed into Paul's epistles.
So Paul's real legacy isn't a building or a monument. It's creating reproducible, scalable, resilient content. The real measure of success is the circulation itself.
The sources basically imply that the most valuable thing isn't the physical structure, the church building, the charismatic leader, but the content and the network of love that keeps multiplying, now through digital means, transcending the physical walls that once held Paul.
This has been a really eye-opening deep dive, connecting that ancient strategy to how we communicate right now. Let's try to summarize the core lessons for you, the listener. Paul's ministry was a triumph of strategy over circumstance. He succeeded not because he was free, but because he centralized his training, decentralized his delivery, and relied on a love agape that is designed to flow and overcome any obstacle.
Hmm.
The story of the slave Onesimus and the master Philemon is just the ultimate proof that the message can't be contained by physical walls.
And that final analysis shows us that true, transformative change, reconciliation, mission, social unity, it's all driven by this circulating love. It connects people into one cohesive, resilient network.
The ultimate power revealed here is that the message can outlive, outrun, and transcend the messenger.
So we'll leave you with a final thought to mull over. If Paul's imprisonment was the catalyst, the pressure point that activated this incredible circulation we see with Tychicus and Onesimus, what current limitations or obstacles in your own life, your professional, personal, geographical, might be, without you even knowing it, enabling a greater unbound circulation of love and knowledge and resilient content today?
Think about that as you continue on your own journey. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back next time.